Are you seeing a certain diversity within teal organizations beyond scale, just different ways of being teal?
Yeah. And by the way, I don't often use the word teal, because, as any of these models, I find these are very useful generalizations. But I'm wary of anything that could look like a destination, and so whenever I have somebody talking to me, leader of an organization, saying, how do I go teal? The first thing I ask him is, let's not forget about teal. What is it that you actually feel compelled to do? Where do you actually feel called to go? And so I think that points to this question of diversity, because there's just, so many different ways to go about that. And so I find the most interesting question is this question of calling, or sort of deep integrity, for leaders and for their organizations. Where do you feel called to go? And so for some people, it is very much in the direction of self-management. For others, it's much, much more in a question of deep wholeness and authenticity. And for others, it's much more, aligning to some overarching purpose and really trying to be in service of that purpose and listening to that purpose. So, if I want to take these three, breakthroughs that I talk about in the book. But then there's even more diversity than that. For instance, I've seen with interest that there's a whole part of the agile community, so this whole IT programming community, that comes to self-management very easily, and sometimes from maybe a somewhat orange quote unquote perspective, and that's fine, and that's perfect too. And other people come at it from a deeply spiritual perspective, and that's perfect too. So yes, there's a lot of diversity in there, and for me, the question really always is simply asking these leaders, what is it that that propels you on that way? What is it that makes that you as a person with your history, feel that you can no longer manage in traditional ways, the ways that we're traditionally being taught in business schools and MBAs, and that is often a very, very fruitful conversation. And then the second conversation to have is, okay, so now that we've talked deeply about you as a person, and let's try for a minute to make an abstraction of that and see your organization as an organization. Where do you feel that organization is wanting to go, and what is it calling for? And it's in this intersection of both that I think some magical things happen.